welcome to Wolfgame. Today we're going to learn how to play Creature Comforts, the 1 to 5 player game by Kids Table Board Games. So join me at the table as we learn to set up and play Creature Comforts. Our first step after laying out the board is to grab the river dial and note the dividing lines, and we'll place it here on the board and line up 3 of those dividing lines randomly with these 3 notches illustrated here. Next, grab the hilltop and place it here over its matching illustration. Next, we'll prepare the valley cards that we placed in the forest and meadow spaces at the top of the board. To do this, we'll create a stack of cards face down with the spring, summer, and fall for each the forest and meadow. And then we will turn them face up so that the first spring card is visible in both the forest and meadow. And the cards in each season should be randomized. And if you'd like to set up for a shorter game, take out 1 random spring and summer card from both the forest and meadow decks and return them to the box. We will then create a supply of goods next to the board with our fruit, wood, stone, yarn, grain, and mushrooms, as well as a supply of stories, coins, and lessons learned. If you have the Kickstarter edition, this tray as well as the wooden tokens come in the box. In the retail edition, you will have cardboard pieces for all of these resources, and you can create piles next to the side of the board. Shuffle the comfort cards and place them beneath the supply of goods, and deal 1 to each of the 4 slots in the owl's nest. Next, shuffle the improvement cards and place them face down at the top left of the board, and deal 1 next to each of the 6 ladder spaces. Place the 4 improvement tokens nearby that can be built with their correlating improvement cards. Then shuffle the traveler deck and place it face down at the end. Choose a player to be the early bird or starting player and give them the worm token as well as the 4 village dice. Each player then selects a home board and then collects the 4 workers that match the indicated player color, 4 cottages, and 2 family dice, and place the 4 cottages to cover up these spaces on the left-hand side of the player board. Deal each player 3 face-down comfort cards, and they will select 2 and discard 1, keeping them secret from other players. Depending on the number of players, and if you're playing a normal or short game, some players may need a bonus coin to offset having less opportunities to be the starting player. So refer to this chart on page 5 of the rulebook at setup. In Creature Comforts, players take on the role of a family of forest creatures living in Maple Valley who are working hard to prepare their home with all the needed comforts to make it through the hard upcoming winter. In order to do this, they'll place family members in different locations on the board to gain benefits, gather resources, craft improvements. The player who has the most comfortable home when winter arrives wins the game. Life in the forest can be hard though. As you place out your family members, there is no guarantee of their success when they return home, and the reason for this is most spaces on the board require specific dice results, and before placing your workers, each family will roll their own family dice, but they will only know a small portion of what's needed because the village dice that is shared among all players are not revealed or rolled until after all workers of all players have been placed on the board. At the beginning of each round, the top card of the Traveler deck is revealed. That provides unique benefits for each different round of the game. All players then roll their 2 family dice and place them in the 2 squares at the top right of their player board. Players will then simultaneously place all of their family members out onto the board. There's no restriction to how many players can place a family member in a single space on the board, but no player may place more than 1 family member in the same space. Turn order will not affect most spaces on the board, but do keep in mind that when you go to the owl's nest or to select an improvement from the workshop. That player order will determine who can collect specific comfort or improvement cards first. Once all players have placed their family members on the board, the first player will roll the village dice and place the dice onto the hilltop. Players now take turns, starting with the early bird and going in clockwise turn order. The active player will place their family dice onto the hilltop, and they can now assign these dice out to spaces where they have placed a worker. So let's see what each space does. Let's begin here with the river. So the blue player in this space is hoping to receive 2 stone. In order to do so, they need to have either a 2 or a 3, as indicated by what's shown in between these 2 dividers here. If the blue player had gone here, he would only have 1 option of what to play to get the reward. And in this space where the yellow player is, there are 3 dice options to get the stone reward here. In this case, the blue player can place his 2 to gather 2 stone. The blue player also placed a family member in the meadow, and they were hoping to receive 2 stories and a coin. In order to do this, they need to place 1 die of any value and a second die of 1 greater value than the first die, and a third die of 1 value greater than the second die. In this case, with the available dice, the blue player is unable to take this action. So I will just have to take my family member back at the end of the turn without the reward, but in recompense, I will receive a lessons earned token, which will give me a little bit more flexibility on future turns. On your turn, you can play any number of lessons earned tokens from your supply to modify the value of any of your dice. For this space, if I'd already had a lessons earned token, I could play it here next to one of these 4s to make its value a 3, which would then give me a 4 minus 1, which is a 3, 4, 5, that would allow me to take that action in the meadow. And please note that when you play a lessons earned token, do not actually change the value on the dice, because these village dice especially are going to be used by all players at the same values. They won't be re-rolled. So just place these next to the dice you're changing as a reminder. Next, we'll take a look at the owl's nest. If you placed a family member here during the worker placement phase, you can place 1 die of any value to take 1 face-up card from the board. If you place a worker here, you can place a 1 or 2 value die to draw 2 cards from the top of the deck, or you could place a 3 or greater value die to draw just 1 card from the deck. After selecting a face-up card from the board to take into your hand, then slide all other cards 1 space to the left and draw a new card from the deck to refill the supply. The next location is the workshop. In order to build an improvement, you must place a die that is equal to or greater than the improvement that you wish to build. So for example, if we wanted to build the umbrella, I would need to place a 3 or greater value die to resolve this space. So we could take this 4 and place it here, and I can now build any improvement from the 4 space or below. And so we take this umbrella and then we pay its cost, which is 2 coins from our personal supply. And then we place this into our player area. And then you will take the lowest cottage remaining on your board and place it onto the improvement. So there is a limit of 4 maximum improvements you can build throughout the game. And each improvement you build gains you points, 1 on your player board as you remove the cottage, and 2 from the improvement itself. We'll then slide all improvement cards that were above the improvement just built down 1 space, and then we'll refill the open space with the top card of the deck. Some improvement cards, such as the almanac or the wheelbarrow, indicate for you to take a special token, which you then select from the supply and place onto the home board. Some improvement cards are known as glades, and these are instead placed above the board near the forest and meadow, and these create new action spaces that any player can resolve with extra dice they have at the end of their turn. And you would still place one of your personal cottages on this improvement card for scoring purposes at the end of the game. When you go to the inn, the available actions will be different each round as new travelers are revealed. With this traveler, the common raven, the available actions are to spend 1 coin to receive 1 story, or spend a coin to draw a comfort card and receive a lesson learned, or to spend a grain to receive a coin, depending on which die value you place to resolve this action. The green arrow with the multiplier indicates how many times that action can be resolved on the turn. If there is no multiplier, that means that action can only be resolved 1 time. If there is this symbol, that means you can resolve this action up to the value on the die face you placed to resolve the action. The last of the action spaces on the board is the market, where you can place a die of any value and then make as many trades as you have either coins or goods in your supply. You could trade 1 coin for 1 good, any 2 goods of the same type for 1 other good, or any 3 goods for 1 coin. And it's important to note that stories and lessons learned tokens are not considered goods that can be traded at the marketplace. The final location that can be resolved on a player's turn is any glade that has been built by any of the players. These are unique in that you do not place one of your family members here during the worker placement phase. This is simply a space where you can place an extra family die if you're unable to resolve it with any space where you placed one of your family members, or if you choose to resolve your die here instead of where you placed your family members. And as you're allowed to rearrange your dice as much as you need to before you end your turn, it's best not to resolve any of the locations until you're satisfied with how you've placed all the dice to not need to backtrack messily. After you finish resolving your turn, take all workers and family dice back to your player board and leave the village dice in their locations for now. At the end of your turn, you may then craft any comforts in your hand by paying the cost along the side of the card. And you will note that certain comfort cards have a type symbol at the top of the card, which will be referenced in certain improvements that can be built. If after crafting comforts at the end of your turn, you still have more than 3 comfort cards in your hand, discard down to 3, selecting any comfort card of your choice and placing it in the comfort card discard pile. Then carefully, without altering values, take all village dice used during your turn and place them back on the hilltop. Play then continues to the next player in clockwise turn order. Once all players have completed their turn, we will then move on to upkeep for the following round. First, check the traveler at the end to see if they have an end of round or end of month ability. If not, continue on with upkeep, or if they do, such as the blue jay, resolve that end of month ability immediately. Then you will discard the top card of the forest and meadow stacks. If, when discarding, you discard the final cards of the deck and reveal the winter scene at the bottom, the game ends immediately and you proceed to scoring. Otherwise, continue with upkeep. So first, rotate the river dial 1 die value clockwise. Discard the leftmost comfort card from the owl's nest. Slide all comfort cards 1 space to the left and refill the empty space from the top of the deck. Discard the bottommost improvement card. Slide all improvements 1 space down and again refill from the top of the deck. Discard the traveler. The early bird worm passes to the next player to your left, and they will also collect the 4 village dice to be rolled later in the round. Then continue to step 1 of the next round, the new traveler. At the end of the final round, all players may then freely craft any comforts that are still in their hand with resources they have in their home. Once all players are done crafting comforts, players will then flip over their player board show this scoring board. Take any cottages that are still on your home board and place them back in the matching space on the scoring side of the board. Select any token from the game to track your score. First, you will score your comfort cards, and at the top left of each comfort card, there is a heart with a score. So scoring these would be 20 points. And then also some comforts will have bonus scoring described on the card. So this is +2 if you also have socks. So an additional 2 points. Then you'll score your improvements in the same fashion. So there's a score at the top left of each card, which gives the blue player another 9 points. And then each of these may also describe a bonus scoring. So here you may store one story on each of your clothing comforts. The story adds 4 points to the comfort's score. So an additional 4 points for this story stored on the socks. And cards that instruct you to store resources or stories. At the end of the game, any resources you have remaining, you're allowed to readjust where they're located, either on your comforts or in your homeboard supply prior to scoring. Though any one resource may only be used to score one card and may not fulfill the scoring requirements of multiple cards. Next, score any showing points on the open cottage slots. And finally, if you have any leftover resources, all stories that are not stored on a comfort but are in your homeboard supply would be worth 2 points. Any leftover coins are worth 1 point. And then any 3 goods of any type remaining in your homeboard supply count as 1 point. And as a note, when scoring, if you were to ever pass 50 points, place any token onto the 50-point marker and then begin again at 1 to continue counting your score. After counting up all points, whichever player has the most points has crafted the most comfortable home for winter and wins the game. This has been Creature Comforts. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial. You're now ready to play the game. As a note, in the back of the rulebook, there is a solo mode of play, and in the Kickstarter edition, there are 2 micro expansions with rule cards included. And I will leave you to discover both of those on your own. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel and click that bell for notifications to be notified when new tutorials and playthroughs hit the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel in another way, please go to patreon.com/wolfgame_tutorials. And there you can provide additional support to take this channel into the future. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.